So we were just talking before we started recording a bit about investments and your investment clients at the moment. What are the most like frequently asked questions that people have when they're looking to buy an investment property?
I think one of the biggest things that people ask about when buying an investment property is how do they buy it, right? So typically you're buying a property that's really distressed and not in great condition. And so you can't just go to the bank and say, hey, I want to get a loan to buy this property that doesn't have walls or has holes in the ceiling
Yeah.
or roof,
Yeah.
and because the bank would tell you no. So that's probably the most frequent question I get is how do you actually buy an investment property? What do you use? And I think the misconception is a lot of people think that you have to use cash, and that's not it at all, right? So there's an opportunity for you to really leverage the cash that you have to do multiple deals because there is specific loans for investment properties. And so that's why it's important to kind of know all of the options and to ask because the loans can be kind of scary, to be honest, for investment properties because they're a lot different. And I've even
Mm.
had some loans that were not great that I learned some lessons on. But I would say that's the most common question that people ask about with investment properties is how do I get the money to buy
Gosh.
it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you must need a little bit of startup cash. Like, how much do you think someone might want to have in the bank before going to get a loan?
So I I love that you said that because there's so many things out there and it's like you can start real estate with no money.
Mm.
And you can,
Mm.
but you put yourself at a great risk if you do that. So I would say
Yeah.
if you're looking to invest, you are going to want to have at least whatever down payment that you're going to need for the loan that you get. So typically it would be like a hard money or private money. And then you also want to have the money to start your construction. So these loans will give you the money for construction, but what a lot of people don't understand is it's on a reimbursement basis. So you want to have the money to be able to have your project move fluidly without needing that money from the bank right away because they're not most banks are not going to give it to you right away. They are going to want you to put money in, get some of the work done, and then they'll reimburse you for it. So I would say, depending on the price point that you're buying at, you would want to have at least 25, 30,000 at least
Mm.
to get started. And right, and not all of that's going towards down payment and not all of that's going to even be out for a long period of time because you put some in and then you get some back out. So but I would say to feel comfortable, that's what I would recommend. But there's definitely ways and options to do it, without having as much money down, but just understanding that the less amount that you have, the more you're putting yourself at risk.
Yeah. So you mentioned stuff about having putting no money down, like these kind of schemes and like whatever it is. What are the dangers of doing something like that? Because it's not even your money,
Yeah.
really, that you're investing.
So, I mean, I've shared this right on my social media is that I've had a deal that went really bad, and um, that was because I didn't have enough liquid cash at the time or access.
Mm.
Doesn't even necessarily need to be cash. It could be credit lines or line of credit, but something to keep me liquid. And what happens is we ended up getting ripped off by one contractor, and we didn't have the money to pay another one because we had already put all the little bit of money that we had into the deal. And so then you get into a point where you're stuck. These loans are really expensive, they cost money. And so if you can't get things done in a timely manner, things add up very quickly and it can make or break your project.
Why would someone want to get an investment home? Like what might compel someone to move towards that sort of stream of income rather than like starting a business or I don't know, just working for that promotion or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think over decades and decades, and probably even centuries, it's been proven time and time again that real estate is the most safest way to wealth, I would say. So starting a business is very risky. Real estate is also risky, but there's also ways that you can start investing into real estate that don't have as much risk. So one of the easiest and safest ways to start investing is to buy your own primary residence, live in it for a year or two, fix it up while you're in there, rent it out, and buy another one. So if you're doing that every 1 to 2 years, now you're accumulating assets, but you don't have as much of that risk, right? So there's lots of different ways that you can do it, but it's proven time and time again to be one of the most stable investments, I would say. Because
Gotcha.
even as the market
Gotcha.
moves up and down, if you're not selling and you're cash flowing, or you're not, negative cash flowing into the property, then you're not losing money. You just wait it out and that's it. And the market goes back up and you're good. So it's a very safe investment, but it is something that you want to do your research. You want to learn, because there's some learning curves for sure, just like with anything new.
Mm. Perfect. Perfect. Um, there was somebody at the window behind, just like standing there for a second, and I
Uh huh.
winked. I don't know why I winked. I was trying to wink at him across the
Yeah.
world through a camera. But yeah, I was just like, yeah, well, this is what we're up to. Um, but yeah, that's funny. But what I was gonna say was, so you recommend having about 25,000 ready for your like first investment property. Would you recommend that for also like your first just home in general, like if you're getting a mortgage or anything?
Well, and let me preface this too. The 25, that also
Mm,
depends the price point. I invest in lower price
okay.
point areas, so that works
Mm,
for me and where I'm at. But I would
gotcha.
recommend, for if you're purchasing a home, it's just so important, and I can't stress it enough, that being a homeowner, there's always things that come up. There's always things that you need, and also that you want. And so I would recommend, whatever your down payment is on the property, you want to have that. You want to have a couple months of payments and reserves, and usually that's what banks look for as well. So they don't want to just see you can make the down payment. They want to see that you have a few months in the bank to make the payment if there was an emergency or if something happened. So I would say that you would want to have, yeah, at least a couple of, they say two is the minimum, but I would say at least 3 or 4 that you have in the bank and
Mm.
liquid, just so that if you need it.
How, like that there will probably be people listening that hear that number like 20,000 or anything around that and think like, how am I ever going to save that amount of money? Because I know that I've been in a position where I've just been working paycheck to paycheck and like trying to save my money, but just finding it just so difficult. Like, do
Yeah,
you have any advice for someone who wants to buy their first home but is maybe struggling to save that money?
absolutely. I'm so happy that you brought that up. So first, I'll tell you how I bought my first home, because my first home. So I started just the way that I was saying, buying a primary residence, just because that gives you so much more options as far as the type of loan that you can use, different programs and things. So I bought my first house when I was, I think, 23, and I bought that house using a down payment assistance program. It was a HUD home, which is like a program that we have over here for like lower priced homes. I used a little bit of money from my 401k, and I used a little bit of money from my tax return. That's how I got into the house. I didn't have really any money. Say, I think I had only been at my job for 2 years, so hadn't didn't have much in my 401k, but I had enough to cover what I needed after the programs that I use. But it was just getting in the mindset first of, I made a decision that said I want to buy a home. And then as I started walking forward, I was able to see all the different options that were available and put them all together. And I actually used I think it's a 203B B loan, which is like a rehab loan because there was some stuff wrong with the property. So I literally used like five different ways to come up with the money to buy that first property. But after I did that, now that property is worth almost five times what I bought it for. So now that's provided
Wow.
me with the opportunity to be able to use that to build my business and to build my investments. Yeah.
Perfect. That's amazing. How did that feel to have your first home secured?
It was amazing. Like I felt very I mean, I was so young and I was a new single mom and, working a job, barely making any money, to be honest. I'm surprised that I even now looking back, I'm surprised I qualified. But um, it was something I had a friend that I was like, I want to buy a house. And we were talking months later and he said, do you really want to buy a house or are you just saying that? And I was like, now because you said that, now I am going to go out and I'm going to buy a house. And I started really researching, and so to get to that end point of home ownership was amazing. It definitely, and I mean, I've said it before, it changed my life. And that's why I'm so passionate about what I do. That's why I'm so passionate about sharing it with other people, because of what it's been able to do for me, my family, like, and I still own that house today. So I yeah, it was a great feeling.
Perfect. Wow. Yeah, I love that. I hope one day that I can have the same feeling when I get my first
Yes, you
place.
absolutely
Although
can.
I'm not sure where I want to go first. I might go live in Spain for a couple of months,
Oh,
so
there you
I
go.
don't think I'll be buying a home anytime soon. Yeah. Um, get some sun because it's going to be very, very cold here in a couple of months.
Oh gosh.
Um, when I finally do come round to buying my first home, like, what do you think I should look out for in a property? Because it's not always like glaringly obvious the issues that there might be. If I'm just coming for a viewing, like how do you make sure the house is right for you?
Yeah, so what you want to do anytime you're purchasing a home is you want to get an inspection, just because there is only so much that we can see to the naked eye. And even if your
Mm,
contract is not contingent on that inspection, meaning like you can't negotiate because of it, it still gives you the peace of mind. So even when I buy investment properties, I still always get an inspection just to make sure that there's nothing, that I know what's going on. I have the best scope of work that I can come up with. So, because I have now another person that's gone in and taken a look. But yes, you always want to get a home inspection. I recommend that all the time. A sewer scope, so right, what you can't see because it's underground. So you want to make sure that those things that you are not visible to you, that you have a professional come out and take a look. So that's usually cost you, I think, between $600-700, maybe a little bit less. And so, but it's worth it to save you, however much headache later finding out something that you don't want to know.
yeah. Have you had any nasty surprises that maybe you didn't see in the inspection?
You know what? Thankfully, not too much. Nothing, yeah, nothing major, really. I mean, no, yeah, nothing, not with any of the properties that I bought. I haven't had anything major that came up after
Do you
the
think there's
inspection.
something that you would have missed? Do you think there's something you would have missed if you hadn't have had inspections?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, that's what allows me as someone, I'm not a contractor, so I don't really have a ton of experience with that. I don't always even know what I'm looking at. But really having the inspection, what it does is it allows me to prepare for the rehab. So I literally just take what they're saying on the inspection and I put a price to it, and
Mm.
that's how I know how much it's going to cost me to fix up a house, right? Like I can see, oh, it needs a kitchen, it needs a bathroom, but then based on what that inspection says, I price those out and get if it's electrical, get an electrician in there or a plumber and get a price. But yeah, I definitely would have missed some things if I didn't have the inspectors go in there.
I see. With those inspectors, are those people that you work with regularly? Do you have like a group of professionals in like a bit of a community, or do you work with different people all over the time?
Um, It's usually with different people only because sometimes I'm buying in different places. And so I usually am
Hmm.
finding a different inspector. But when I am in the same place, I try to use the same person because just with everything that I'm doing, because it makes it so much easier. You get to know each other and they know, what I'm looking for. And sometimes inspections can be scary. It's because they're like, oh, there's this, and this wrong. And it's like sometimes that's just it being an old house and it's not actually like anything major or that's going to be super expensive or even that you need to fix. But if you don't know and you don't have that relationship, then it can come off really intimidating.
Right, right, yeah, I see. Cool. Okay. Should we
Yeah.
end it there for today? Yeah, I'll just pause the
Okay.
recording. It's beautiful. Thanks for coming on.